Hey threadheads, Darren here. Welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying up the Howard Norton Special. Now, as the name suggests, this is a pattern created by Howard Norton, and it's a variation of the Boss, which is part of the Comet series of Steelhead salmon flies. Now, this one was designed specifically for the Russian River and is good for winter steelhead, February, March sort of time, and also for Chinook salmon in the fall. Now the fly has a very long tail, and this will give it a lot of swimming action in the water, as well as a stiff collar, which will help kind of push a little bit of water. It's a pretty slim profile, so it's going to sink quick, and with the bead chain, that'll add a little bit extra weight to help it get down. I'd like to give a shout out to Dean Endress for helping out with a little bit more information on the pattern as well. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and I'll get your name entered into our next draw. We give away some of the flies we tie on the channel, some stickers, and some fly tying materials. I'm also going to be putting a link in the description and in the cards where you can get a downloadable PDF with some more information on this fly. Let's have a look at the material list and get started. Alright, let's get a fresh hook in the vise. We're going to be using a salmon steelhead hook today. This is the Mustad SL73U BLN, and this is a replacement for the older Mustad 36890. It's sort of a standard 2 extra heavy, 3 extra long salmon steelhead hook. We're going to be using some white uni thread in a 6/0. So we'll just start by wrapping a little bit of thread on just behind the return eye, and we're just going to close that return eye just so that we can tie on that. I kind of like these for tying barbell eyes on. They give a nice platform. Just snip a pair of bead chain eyes from a string of bead chain, and we're going to just start by tying that on a diagonal. And we're going to then switch up our angle and wrap it in the opposite direction. I'm going to give that a few good wraps in each direction, and then we're going to wrap underneath. And every few wraps, I just like to grab the eyes and kind of pull that thread a little bit tight, just to make sure that all the thread wraps are getting snug in there, and we're not going to have a lot of movement once we get the eyes wrapped down. So we go under, and then as well as cross wraps over top, and that should give us a pretty stable set of eyes. If you want to, you can add a little bit of glue here just to help secure those a little bit tighter. So for the first material we're going to use, we're going to take a little bit of medium silver oval tinsel. I just like the medium size. It kind of gives a nice solid rib to the fly. I'm just going to tie that right behind the eyes and on the side of the hook shank. You just want to kind of try and make sure that you've got a smooth an underbody as you can get. So we're going to be wrapping this with floss, and any imperfections that we have underneath are going to show up in the floss as well. So we just tied that down to the point of the hook and then back up to the eye. Next, we're going to take a little bit of bucktail here. Originally, I believe this pattern was tied with polar bear hair, but of course that's fairly difficult to find these days, and so bucktail is actually a really nice alternative, and you get quite a bit of length on that. So just before we take that to the vise, we're going to do a quick hand stack. So we're going to take some of the longest hairs, pull those out of our stack, and just measure the tips up roughly. You can use a hair stacker if you like, but I like to have a little bit of a natural variance in the length of the hairs. Just makes it look a little bit more natural. Not that bright orange is a natural color, but you get what I'm saying. So for the length of the tail, we're going to make this about 2 times the length of the shank for this. And you can have this anywhere between a full length of the hook up to 2 lengths. So we're tying this probably about as long as I would want it, but this will give a nice swimming motion in the water. So we're going to tie this on top of the hook shank. We're going to try and make sure we get most of that hair to stay on top of the hook shank. Again, the goal here is just to have a really smooth underbody for that floss. We'll trim up the tag ends. And we'll just give a few extra wraps of thread just to clean this up a little bit before we tie in our floss. And a couple extra wraps at the eye, doesn't hurt. Alright, so we're going to take a piece of orange or burnt orange floss. This fly was also tied with chenille bodies in some cases as well. We're going to be using floss here, so I just moisten my fingers a little bit just to tame the ends of that floss for the tie-in. And again, we'll tie this along the same side where we tied our silver oval tinsel, and we'll tie that back down to where our tie-in spot for the tail ends. You can go just a couple wraps further, and we'll take our thread up behind the eye, and we're going to add a half hitch here just to make sure that our thread doesn't get bumped off and mess things up here when we start to wrap our floss. So you want to have your floss as flat as possible, and I like to do mine just an overhand wrap. If the floss starts coming apart a little bit, you can just push it back together. You don't have to worry about getting a completely flat finish here, but you just want to have it fairly flat. And again, all that preparation that you took, carefully tying in your materials for your underbody will help go a long way in keeping your body smooth for your floss. Just add a couple wraps to make sure that that's secured and in place and that it's not going to unravel. And we'll trim off the excess. Now on some of the original patterns, they had a butt section of silver tinsel. We're going to sort of skip that. Just got one wrap under the tail to help prop it up a little bit. And then we're going to move forward with our ribbing. And I think we're going to try and keep this to around 5 ribs. If you want to go with a finer ribbing material, you can maybe get away with 7 on this one. And we'll just tie that off behind the eyes, and we'll give that a snip and just turn that to the side so I don't sip my thread by accident. Next, we're going to find a neck hackle. We're going to use an orange here. I like to find something that's got fairly stiff barbs and a little bit extra width. So you're going to create a nice large collar that's going to push a little bit of water. We're going to grab it by the tip and pull the fibers down, create a tie-in point near the front, not right at the front. And we'll tie that in between the eyes. Give that a couple wraps and then fold the tip back. We'll give that a couple wraps to secure it. And then we'll trim off the tip here. And then we're going to take our scissors and run them along the top edge of that hackle just to help this fold a little bit, help us get started. And we want to make sure that we wrap that in front of our, or behind our thread, so that we're not getting tangled up. And we're going to take about 4 or 5 wraps, get a nice collar in here, and then we'll tie off the excess. So I like to tie mine off on top. Just make sure you kind of pull all the fibers away, and want to make sure that we have no hackle fibers kind of caught at an awkward angle there. So give that a couple wraps, pull the stem back, give it a couple wraps to secure it, and then we'll trim off the excess. And then we'll just add a few more wraps to the fly just to clean up any hackle that's sticking out in behind the eyes, and just kind of clean that up a little bit. Then we're going to take our whip finish tool here. We're going to add a whip finish to the fly. And once we've got that done, you can add a little bit of head cement or some bone dry. One thing I've noticed with the lighter colored flies is the bone dry will discolor it a little bit. It'll darken it a bit. So in this case, I'm going to just be using a little bit of Sally Hansen's or some of my regular head cement. So there you have it. That's the Howard Norton Special, part of the Comet series, also known as an Orange Comet, depending on who you're talking to. Hope you enjoyed that. And don't forget to leave a comment down below, leave a like, and subscribe. Hey fly tyers, thanks for stopping by and checking out my fly tying videos. If you enjoyed the video and want to show your support, hit the thumbs up and share it to your social networks. I hope you consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, be sure to hit the bell icon to get notifications on my latest fly patterns, tips, and reviews. If you have a question or comment, leave a message below. You'll also be entered into the next draw for some of the flies I tie and a few stickers. Until next time, this is Darren saying, keep a hook in your vise. Cheers.